The way I have it set up is I'm going to present the workshop to you as much in the form as I did over the summer, and at the end I'm going to have time for Q&A if you all have any questions about the workshop or my experience or like other stuff. Is that okay? All right, word. So, with that being said, hello, my name is Chris. I am your peace intern, and this is how to plan a block party. And so, what I always like to say, so this is about race reconciliation, which can be a hard topic and things can be said that are really hard or whatnot. So when I go into these conversations, I have a covenant that stands on two pillars, and I represent them by this ASL signs. So the first one is breath, and what that means is that your breath is safe here. With that being said, I reserve the right to make sure other people's breath are safe too. So in the discussion, if it looks like the conversation might turn to where it is harming someone else or saying something offensive, I reserve the right to cut that conversation off and replay it later on when it's one-on-one. The second thing that I like to pillar on is that everything, because I am a disciple, is that it comes back to the table. I think that we as people and everything we talk about in this workshop is scriptural, inviting people back to the table who should have always been there. And so those are my pillars as my covenant. This would be the time where I offered the kids a time to get out if they don't think they can handle it, but you guys are here and you're stuck. I have locked the doors. No. All right. With that being said, we are going to do an activity, so stand if you are able and form a circle around the sanctuary. Oh gosh. Hope I have enough. Ooh, ooh. You don't have to hold hands. Ooh, ooh.
Hey, y'all stretch across.
You don't have to hold hands. If you want to hold hands, if you want to hold hands, that's on you. You don't have to hold hands. This is for you.
Oh, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Boop. For you. Oh, two. Here you go. Two.
No, actually,
Excuse me. Two. 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 Oh my gosh. You don't have to hold hands. It's probably easier if you don't. But if you just want to hold a hand, no one that's gonna stop you. Jane, if you want to hold hands,
I didn't
hold.
know if we're supposed to hold hands or not.
You can hold hands with your husband, maybe. I don't know. You don't have to. You don't have to hold hands. It's probably easier if you don't hold hands. Please don't hold hands. There we go. Hold yourself. Hello. There you go.
Not today. Oh,
Boop. Bop.
I haven't been yelled at since I was a senior in high school.
Senior in high school. Ooh. Oh gosh, there's too many of you. Okay. So you're A, B, C, D. A, Kyle. Look at me, Kyle. A, B, C, D, A, B, C, D, A, B, C, D. Want to take a wild guess? A, B, C, D. Excuse me, let me cut through here. All right. Okay, so if you are an A, raise your hand. Awesome. Unfortunately, you have been rejected from school. Yes. And so now the closest one to you is a bus ride away with your friend, which means you have to wake up an hour earlier. If you are forward, take a step back. Take a step forward and take a step back. If you are an A, take a step back. If you are a B, raise your hand. Congratulations. You found the love of your life and they have proposed to you. Oh my gosh. Unfortunately, your marriage license has been denied, but you decided to move in together anyway. But it does mean you're legally not equated to anything they have, so take a step back. If you are a C, raise your hand. You are taking the train for a trip, and you show up, and you are told that you have been moved to a VIP section. Take a step forward. Congratulations. If you are D, raise your hand. You have unfortunately been arrested and sentenced to part of a chain gang. But you get there and discover you actually get your own chain. So you are able to move around more freely than your fellow prisoners. Take a step forward. Hey, a win's a win. A win's a win. All right, and now congratulations to everyone. You all have graduated community college, so take a step forward. Wow. In your mind, you're taking a step forward. What did we notice about this exercise? You're all the way back there. Say it again, who said that? You have no power. You didn't do anything. It's unfair. What did we notice about the cards when I was handing them out, besides the fact that I ran out? Say it again. Different colors. Ballots. You're not wrong. My mom said I had the handwriting of a doctor because you don't know what I'm writing. Were there more C's? No. It was random. It was randomized. Everything that you all heard was a Jim Crow law in the state of Arkansas, in the town of Rogers. Can anyone tell me what Jim Crow laws are? Yes. Thank you, Mike. They were laws created to keep racism in place and systematic. I always like starting with this exercise because who knows where the name Jim Crow came from? Yes, he was a minstrel character, which means there was a white actor who put on blackface and proceeded to have a stereotype of black people. This exercise became so popular that later, years on, when they created the laws, they took that name. I always like starting with this because it's a name, it's a word. And as people of faith, what is something we follow that has a bunch of words in it? The Bible. The Bible was used to justify everything you just heard. The Bible can be used to justify horrendous things, but it also can be used to heal. The slaves read the same Bible, often the only thing they were allowed to read. Sunday was the only day they had as a Sabbath. Words have power. We put the power behind the words. All right, everybody pop a squat. Or take a seat, sorry. Please. No, do not take a knee. Don't take a knee. For those of you all who don't know, two things. My first degree is in print journalism, which A means I am a nerd first and foremost. My second degree, well, I don't have a second degree yet. My second thing is that I'm a daughter of a teacher. So that means I love physical things. Ooh, ooh. Paper. So I have little packets and then I have place for you to take notes. You do not have to take it. If you want, it is there. It is a tool. I also have pens. I came prepared. Wow. Ooh, ooh. Please come take. Hopefully, I have enough for everyone if everyone wants one. Sorry. Oh, it's the pocket. Oh, here. If I clip it, would that be better? My bad. Technical difficulties. Oh. So, What? Why did I break the boards? Oh, we'll talk about that later. If you got a packet, you can flip it to the first page. Everything that I talked about, all the laws are cited there, as well as where I got them from, because I'm a journalist, so I cite sources. I am a nerd, so I cite sources. If you flip it on the back of that page, you'll see pictures. Ooh, pictures. Ah. What do we know about the Black Panther Party? The Black Panther Party. Yes, ma'am. Black Panther from Marvel. Black Panther from Marvel did take his name from the party. Civil rights group. Yes. Yes, started in California. Perfect. Yes, Megan. Did it end on Texas? Yes, they did spread chapters throughout the US. Does anyone know what scary? They were scary to white people. Does anyone know what their slogan was? Yes. It was, sorry, did someone say something? Their slogan is all power to the people. Thanks, Gene. So the Black Panthers, like you said, they decided to get together and they decided, hey, we want to do some work. So they invited people from their community, Black, white, Irish, Italian, poor. They said, come together, and they said, hey, what's the biggest problem around here? What's going on? And they said, our kids are hungry. We don't have food. We don't have money for food. They go to school hungry. They can't focus in school, so they fall asleep. And so the Black Panthers said, okay, we'll feed them. So they started the breakfast program. That breakfast program it started getting so large that it started in a house. That house moved to a center. That center moved to a warehouse. And it got so big to the point they were feeding so many people that the US government noticed. And they said, oh, don't like that. I don't like that. They said people are gathering. They said the poor people are communicating with each other. They might be making plans. Don't like that. And so they came in and they broke it up and they said, no, don't do this. They were gathering at what they called those gatherings were block parties. Because the act of coming together as a community, of talking with one another, of actively doing that was revolutionary. And the government didn't like that. As people of faith, can we think about some time in the Bible where people gathered? You said dead by 1,000? Oh, he said, I was like, I don't know what Bible you're reading, but hey, you got it, homie. Last Supper. Sermon on the Mount. The wedding at Cana. They gathered, specifically the Last Supper is what I like to start with because they gathered together and the next day the government said, no, that's wrong, we got to kill him. No, don't do that. If you turn to the next page, flip it over. Ooh, we're flipping. There's some people. So when you hear the word block party, what are some things you think of? Say again, my rock climbing? Okay. Food, music, dancing, bounce houses, back to school bash, community, food, dancing, community, happiness. Usually the same ethnic group. The people around you, that's the block party. If you turn to the next page, you'll see a series of different names. Those names, because I want you to understand that the block party is not just one thing. It is community oriented, so it takes different forms. The first thing you'll see is Pascal's Restaurant. Coretta Scott King once Pascal's Restaurant in Atlanta is the most important historical site for the American Civil Rights Movement because the Civil Rights Movement was planned at Pascal's Restaurant. Who knows what the March on Selma is? You feel confident enough to say it, anyone? Slay. Selma, Alabama is a, watch the movie. Yes. So, the March on Selma. Selma, Alabama is a deeply segregated town. Segregated by a bridge. This bridge goes over the Alabama River. Dr. King at Pascal's restaurant planned a march, and he invited everyone. He said, black, white, other, Asian, Italian, poor, rich. He said, if you stand for integration, if you stand for justice for all, gather with us, and we'll walk across this bridge. So they gathered, young, old, poor, rich, white, black, and they marched across the bridge. They got to the other side of the bridge and were met with police force. What do you think happened? They walked away completely peaceful. Everything was fine. Locals said that the river ran blood for the next 2 days. The incident was called Bloody Sunday. Oh, sorry, I put your hand up. I bring that up because we often think that justice work is peaceful, and we think of peaceful as, oh, nothing will happen. We just have to ask for our rights and everything will be great. It's hard. Peace is hard. There were pregnant women on that march. There were children on that march. There were elderly on that march. They all got beat. Bodies were dragged off. Some are still unfound to this day. If you go to the next person on the list, Georgia Gilmore. Who knows what the Montgomery bus boycott was? Yes. And so the Black community, and they said, we're going to stop riding the bus. We're going to show them that you can't just push us to the back. Our money is just as green as everyone else's. But what people don't often know is that during that bus boycott that lasted over 300 days, the buses started to notice. And so they would drive around town, and you'd be walking your friends, or you'd be walking to school, and they say, hey, maiden, you look really tired. Why don't you get on the bus? Come on, get on the bus. I know you're tired. They'll be like, hey, Bree, you're pregnant. You're pregnant. You don't want to walk when you're pregnant. Get on the bus. Come on, just get on the bus. Get on the bus. And they would harass people and say, y'all should get on the bus. Georgia Gilmore saw this and said, no. And so she opened up her house and started an in-home bakery so that she could sell the products and use that money to pour into carpools, to buy cars, to buy buses, to make sure that you all, the people in the movement, could get to different places. She would go to churches where the civil rights movement would do meetings, and she would sell to them. So know what you're thinking. Well, I don't know what you're thinking. I assume what you're thinking is, why would you sell to black people? Aren't they part of the movement? Why would you sell to black people if you're trying to pour the money back into the movement? You have more energy to it. Who said that? Create ownership. A little thing people don't also know is that the police during the civil rights movement would take pictures of you before we had like photo identification and not photo identification, you know what I mean. And they would find you and your family, and they would trace it. So if Maiden was at a protest, Morgan would lose their job. They would find your family, and they would punish your family for being there. And so oftentimes, people couldn't physically go and be a part of the movement out of fear of retribution for their family, for their elderly. They would stop your checks. They would stop your parents' checks. They would kick your family out of elderly homes. They would target all parts of you. And so in order to be able to pour into the movement in a way that wouldn't cost them their jobs or their livelihood, they would buy the groceries, they would buy the bakery. Being a part of a revolutionary movement is more than just being there. It needs funding, it needs food, it needs carpool. Just because you can't be on the front lines of every protest doesn't mean that you're not a part of the movement. So quick overview, Georgia Gilmore, Pascal's restaurant, they had food, they had music, they had people. That makes it a, oh my God, you guys listen. By Judge Dean, I think they've got it. Something else that happened, Georgia Gilmore was a part of. The Montgomery bus boycott, awesome. The March of Selma was inspired by the Children's March. Does anyone know what the Children's March was? Oh my gosh, you were so smart. Oh my God, yeah, word. It was. They did. But not like band marching. I don't have a lot of band people in here. Don't think that. Not like high knees. What it was that children, 6th grade and below, and 6th grade through 12th grade, decided communally by themselves to stand up and walk out of school in protest. They walked out and they stood in the streets. They sat, they watched, and they waited. And the police came. What do you think happened? It started in Alabama, but it ricocheted throughout the US. That incident inspired Dr. King to start the March on Selma. I always love putting this in there so that I can look the youths in their face and tell them, you all are the revolution. You all are so powerful. You caused Dr. King, one of the greatest civil rights movements, to change his course completely because of what you all organized. That's the power you have now. And so we go down, we're in Fraser's Cafe Society. Ooh, ooh. If you look at it, you'll see, if you look closer, you'll see that it's integrated. Ooh. Evelyn Jones Fraser specifically created the cafe to be integrated seating, which means every table you showed up at, you were going to be sitting next to someone who did not look like you intentionally. What do we know about Dr. King? Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. Sorry, Dean. Oh? Yes. Yes, inspiring shot. Does anyone know where he was shot? That was specifically towards my youth because we talked about this. Layla? Yes, the Lorraine Motel. Memphis, Tennessee. Look, I teach them stuff. What else do we know about Dr. King? What was he famous for? Main faces of the civil rights movement. I Have a Dream. Do you have any? Great Orator? Orator, yes. Peaceful way. Yeah. Yes, TT did the teachings of Gandhi. What do we know about Malcolm X? Violence. Yes, he didn't. Say that again. He was not. Yes. Malcolm X was not part of the Black Panthers. He also had the quote that said, by any means necessary, which is often acquitted to the Black Panthers. That was just him on his own. Sorry, Julie, did you say something? Yes. He was a part of the Nation of Islam, yes. And he also was assassinated. Yes. So we have two things. Malcolm X is violent, horrendous person, and then we have King, the peaceful protester. What if I told you they swapped by the end of their life? What if I told you they were actually good friends? Malcolm X took a trip to Israel, and he said that he found out a peace inside of him. One that said, before he went, it was by any means necessary. It was the white man is the devil. He came back and said, we can't get through this if it's just us versus them. We need to have conversations. There needs to be other people at the table. King started getting really sad about the movement. He said, I don't think it's making progress. King also owned multiple guns. Fun fact. Finger guns. No, he actually owned guns. Towards the end of his life, he wrote a sermon called Peace is Obnoxious, because he said, my idealism of the I Had a Dream speech maybe needs a little more oomph. Maybe I was too naive, too wet behind the ears. So all that comes back to Fraser's Cafe Society, because that society specifically was created to be integrated. And in it, they had conversations like this of what does the movement need? What does it mean to have a movement? They also often were raided, shut down, because at the time it was still illegal to be integrated. So, pop quiz. Fraser's Cafe Society had people, music, which means they were doing justice work, community work, and they were together, which makes it a yeah, ready for that pop and lock in. Kids have to deal with that every night. And so, if you flip to the last page, I didn't grow up going to church or to camps. So I developed a healthy respect for camps this summer. I also have a love for church now. Something I always tell the kids when we go on mission trips or whatnot is this is awesome. It's a great week. If you go home and you don't think about this week or anything we discussed or anything we did, and so you need to write a college essay 5-10 years later, what's the point? The whole point of these conversations of camp, of mission trip, of church, is to go outside of it, is to make this ground holy outside of church. That is what Christians do. That is the block party. The block party extends past pews, past church, past stained glasses. And so on the back, you all have the benefit of being my hometown, so I could look up stuff specifically here. You'll see Ozark Circle of Choice, which helps with reproductive health and access at NWA. I want to specifically shout out the Equal Justice Initiative right under it, because they have a museum in Montgomery, and their tagline is From Slavery to Mass Incarceration, which is a great, and it's set up as a timeline. And you start from the moment ships landed in America all the way up into present day, and it's constantly reworked, constantly added on to. They have a program called the Remembrance Project. The Remembrance Project is an artist who created these steel beams, and he wrote out each state and each county and each name of the people who were lynched in there. In 1999, a dissertation documented 318 lynchings in Arkansas alone. Those are just the ones that we know of. Those are the ones named, the ones that were taken pictures of. In 1999, a dissertation documented 318 lynchings that happened in Arkansas up until that point. The Remembrance Project has these beams, and they do it with the understanding, with the hope that each state will eventually reclaim their beam and put it somewhere with a museum or a placard to talk about the lynchings that happened there. Little Rock has started this process but hasn't finished it. Rogers has not started. And then if you go under it, you have the Arkansas Justice Reform Coalition. They have a really awesome Hummingbird project, which provides financial funds for bonds and for people who can't afford to get out of jail while they wait trial. If you go under that, you have the World Kitchen, which specifically donates 50% of their net proceeds during what's called Week of Restaurants. Is Kyle in here? Where restaurants participate in 15% of all their proceeds during that week go towards World Kitchen to do aid, such as in Gaza or in Ukraine or in other war-torn countries that don't have access to food. People, the block party is awesome. It's fun. Oh, cool. But it was started as a revolutionary act of gathering. And when you gather, you do justice work. You make the world heaven on earth. That's the important thing to remember about the block party. That's what's got lost within history. And so if you remember nothing else from me, nothing else from this workshop or whatnot, what you take on, please remember this quote from Audre Lorde, which is, "The tools of the master will not undo the master's home." The US was built on bodies of the indigenous, bodies of blacks, bodies of women, bodies of queer people, bodies of anyone who doesn't fit into a very specific image. The only way we can undo these systems, the only way we can shoot them down, is by doing the opposite, not being bloody and being violent, not being hateful. It's by doing the hard work of justice work, inviting people back to the table, conversations of joy. The Block Party, a vital part of the Block Party also is joy. Because if you burn down the systems and you just replace them, you've done nothing. If you don't dance in the ashes of the systems burning, then you've done nothing. You have to be joyous while you undo this system because it was built on hate and hardship. And also, it's joy to take down bad fascist things, you know? And so, quick pop quiz again. If you have food, if you have music, if you have people, it is a. And what do you do at the Block Party? Dance, sing, justice. That is justice work. And so usually this would be the part where I invite the kids, the youth, to their own Block Party. And I have a little speaker and I would play music and I would answer questions and I would give them a time to play on their phones or to, I also have stickers that I made. Ooh, ooh. You can make bracelets. But before we start the Block Party, I always put my watermelon jug in the middle. Because who's heard of the stereotype of Black people liking watermelon and fried chicken? Does anyone know where the stereotype came from? My youth can't answer because they know this. It started because slave masters would give watermelon seeds to slaves and they would give the old cooking grease to slaves to say, we can't do anything with it, let's just give it to them. Maybe they'll figure something out. Or maybe they're starved, we don't know. But the slaves found a way to grow watermelon here. Slaves found a way to cook with that grease. So well that the masters started asking them to bring that to their dinner parties. Fine dining in the big house with watermelon and fried chicken. And so when they saw how powerful that could be, they started selling it. They would sell plates and they would sell watermelon, gain money enough to buy their freedom, their children's freedom. And the masters didn't like that. And so they created stereotype. They put hatred behind the word, behind this ideal, and made them ashamed of something that they put together and did out of resistance. And so I always like to put the watermelon in the middle to say this is not a sign of stereotypes, not something to be afraid of, or be ashamed of. It is a sign of resistance. It is a sign of community. It is a sign of we're going to get through this and we're going to survive. And we're going to have a really good, tasty meal as we do it. That's us, part of the Block Party. And so that means we have come to the point, FCC Rogers, you're a little late, but as my grandma says, nobody worth being there shows up on time. And so I officially like to welcome you all to the Block Party. Thank you for coming. Thank you. Oh, wow, stop it. So you all can be seated. What's really fun, because you guys are my home church also, I can do some things with you all that I couldn't do with the other camps because I couldn't pack it all up and travel across the country doing it. So I have little sheets. They have information. They also have book recommendations of books you can read to get more information about everything I talked about, as well as some other things I think would be really interesting that I couldn't really include because I was only allowed an hour at each camp to do specifically my workshop, but I could have one-on-one conversations through the week, so I couldn't put all of Black history and all of the really cool bits in it. I also have a little sheet that has local bookstores because please try to support local, but you don't have to. If you have to get from Amazon, I completely understand. But yeah, they're over here. I also made stickers. I have the cross in different queer flags, if you would like that. I also have watermelon in different flags of people and countries that are under oppression. So those are all free to come over and take and partake in. And yeah, that goes into our Q&A part. If there's any questions? Julia, I'm so sorry. Your hand's been up for a minute. How was I received? Yes, I was. What's really funny is that the youth were all for it. When they found out what I was there for, they were like, heck yeah, let's do it. Any pushback that I had was actually adults. And it was them being like, oh, well, why are you doing this? Or being like, well, why didn't you include this or whatnot? And trying to explain, I have an hour, I can't include the whole vastness of Black history, Indigenous history in it. So I was received well by the youth, but the pushback was the adults. I'm sorry. Yes. 9 weeks of traveling, 8 different camps, and I saw 5 campers all summer. 5 Black campers all summer. Mhm. Yes. She did. She picked me up both times when I came for the mission trip and at the end. It's okay. It's okay. Julia, don't do that, Dean. She's really heartbroken about it. Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, and specifically in North Carolina, I was at Camp Caroline. They, the Black churches there, they call it the convocation churches, they rent out that same camp a week before or after the white camps. They refuse to be at the campsite with the white camps. So, and then Memphis has their own facility and camps they go to, but yeah. Marty, they receive much pushback. I think before they attended, it was more. At the beginning of each week, you kind of have a time to talk about because they would call them different things at different sites, but basically it would be like their free time or their mission time, and so everyone got to talk a little about what they're doing. Like I'm doing friendship bracelets, or I'm canoeing, or whatnot, and I would say I'm doing the peace and justice workshop. And when I would say it, which all I would say is, it's called How to Plan a Block Party. It's on race reconciliation. If you want to come, come, because I usually leave it a mystery until they get there. And so that would receive pushback. And then I would be like, why don't you come? And afterwards we can talk more. And so they would come to it. And then afterwards it would be slightly different. So the pushback was before they saw or heard anything. Yes, I did meet with the other interns. We had training week, which was the first week, which was in Indianapolis, where we all got to hash out. We came with ideas of our workshop, and we all got to hash out how we would do it and what it looks like, and we got to practice on one another. And then we met back up at the end of the summer for closing retreat, also in Indianapolis, where we talked about our summer, the good, the bad, the ugly, how we were going to go back into the real world and talk to our churches and our youth and whatnot. So, yeah. And I'm still friends with them too. We're in a group chat, and I was talking to them before this, like I'm very scared. So we still talk to each other pretty weekly, and we meet up on FaceTime to watch The Summer I Turned Pretty. I don't know if any of you guys heard that. Yeah, because we kind of became obsessed with that over the summer. That was like our decompressing time. So we do that still now. Yes. Yeah. And now I'm done. I think that the role of the church is to be a safe space for marginalized communities, for oppressed communities. So I think that what we're doing the work now really well. I think there are some gaps that we could do, but I think that making this church a safe space, inclusivity is what the church does. Individually, like if you support reproductive rights or if you support feeding or whatnot, that's what you do. But I think the role as the church is to make the space safe and affirming for all those struggling to come in. And then once you're in there, you individually can decide, I do want to support this or I don't want to support that. That's just my own personal thing. Mhm. Yeah. Wow. No, you're fine. A big reason that I ended up kind of coming to the church and eventually finding my call is that my youth pastor at the time, the first thing I ever said to her, she laughs at me now, is I told her, I don't believe in all that God stuff. I'm just here for the pizza. And her response wasn't, oh, well, you can't stay or whatnot. It was, cool, pizza's over in the corner. And I think that just that affirmation of my anger and my confusion and my questions is what made me feel safe enough to be there and eventually come to the church and eventually hear my call. And so I try really intentionally as a youth pastor and as a minister to affirm people when they come. If they come and say, I don't know if I believe in God, but like I'm here, or I'm here because I heard my kids could be here for a few hours and I can have time to rest. And I'm like, okay, cool, slay. I think that that's was really affirming to me, and so I try to do that. And I think another big thing was that I was it's very disciples, but I was allowed to take communion even as I identified as an atheist, even when I said I don't believe in God. They told me you're still a beloved child and this body, this blood is for you. And that was really affirming to me too, that even if I wasn't bought into it, I could still partake in this like sacrament. And so that was really impactful to me as well. Yes. So Ella Johnson, she did hers on queerness and affirming queerness, and she does a really cool exercise where she starts with the Book of Genesis, for B, and she goes through each line of the Book of Genesis, and it's like God created night and day, and she talks about what's in the middle of night and day. People say twilight and dusk, and she says God created uh, grass and water. What's in between that, and like mud and moat and stuff. And she uses that as a segue to talk about how everything is not binary, black, white, male, female. There are in betweens and things flow, and super cool. And she's also writing up her thing so that I can bring it here because I'd love to do that as well. And then we have Ruthie, who does really cool immigration talk. And so she goes through what is being an immigrant, what is being an asylum seeker, what is being a refugee. And she talks about the different things. And she does an exercise where the youth can like mark off different things in the series. So it's like, would you like a life game of life, but you do it as an immigrant. And so it's like now you're here, you sleep on a tent. What do you do now? You have a kid, you don't have a kid, kind of thing. Karen. Yeah. It's the population of Rogers, the black population of Rogers is 3%. And up until 1980, Rogers was a sundown town, which for those of y'all who don't know, it means black people should not be here when the sun goes down because we're not responsible for what happens. Um, and so with that, I think that a big part of it is that we get scared to talk about the history, and we think, and I hear a lot about, oh well, you shouldn't tell the kids about slavery or about what happened because you don't want them to feel bad about being white, or don't want to feel bad about having privilege. And what I tell my youth is, it's not about you have privilege. We all have privilege. I'm a black woman in the South, but I have privilege because I have a college degree. I got that college degree without any debt because I got scholarships because of my mind. And so it's not about you have privilege. We all have privilege. It's what do you do with that privilege? What do you do after that? Do you use it to speak up for people, or do you use it just to hoard it to yourself? And I think that we need to change our mindset when we talk about history, when we talk about these topics, because they have a right to know. We all have a right to know. It's not just black history, it's American history. It's the history that built this country, these towns, these buildings. Johnny. Yeah. Yeah. No, I don't think it's that. I got my information from the Arkansas Encyclopedia, and I can give you that link because it didn't have a picture of the sign, and I obviously wasn't here to see it. But my grandmother, yeah. Mhm. Yeah, and then and I agree, and there were some towns that didn't have signs, they didn't have it written down, but people knew. When I told my grandmother that I accepted a job in Rogers, Arkansas, her first instinct was, "Are you allowed to go there?" And so there are certain towns that people just kind of know. I'm not going to head around there. I'm not going to go there looking the way I look. Oh, sorry. Can I something? Yes. Yeah. Yes. Sorry, Dean. Dean's gonna never give me a mic. Thanks. Yes.